You know that feeling, right? You've spent hours painting your model, you wait for it to dry, touch it. Seems okay. But then, ugh, fingerprints. Or worse, you put masking tape on, pull it off, and half the paint comes with it. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things. So today we're doing a deep dive into something that sounds simple, but really isn't. Tamiya paint. Specifically, how long it actually takes to dry and cure. We want to give you the shortcut, understand the why behind it, so you can get those perfect finishes every time.
Exactly. Because the big takeaway really is that dry to the touch and fully cured are, well, they're worlds apart. And knowing why they're different, chemically speaking, that's the key to avoiding all those problems you just mentioned.
Okay, let's get into this chemical mystery then. Tamiya has like two main paint families, right? That seems to be the fundamental split we need to get our heads around first.
That's absolutely the place to start. First up, you've got the X and XF series. Those are the little glass bottles, the acrylics. Now, the crucial thing here is they are alcohol-based acrylics, not water-based like, some other common brands.
Ah, okay, alcohol-based.
Right, so the alcohol evaporates pretty quickly, meaning they feel dry to the touch fast, maybe 10, 20 minutes sometimes. But, and this is the really interesting bit, the actual hardening, the cure, that's a second stage. It's called polymerization or cross-linking.
Polymerization, okay.
Yeah, and it happens from the outside in.
Mm.
So the surface feels dry, maybe even hard, but underneath, it's still soft, still vulnerable. Gloss acrylics especially, wow, they can stay soft under the surface for weeks.
Weeks. Wow. Okay, that outside in thing, that explains so much, like why you can leave a fingerprint hours later, even if it felt dry. So that's the acrylics. What's the other family then?
You nailed it, that's the deception. The other main group are their synthetic lacquer sprays, the cans, TSAS and PS series. These use pretty aggressive organic solvents. They're often called hot solvents.
Hot. Okay, why hot?
Well, when you spray them, the solvents actually bite into the plastic surface just a little bit, momentarily softening it. Then they evaporate super fast, and as they do, the paint kind of welds itself to the plastic. It forms a really strong bond.
Ah, I see. So it's more like a single process. The drying and curing is kind of the same thing?
Pretty much, yeah. Once those volatile solvents flash off, the paint is basically cured, much less tricky than the two-stage acrylics. And the TS and AS paints, chemically they're the same stuff, just different colors aimed at different model types. Cars versus planes.
Gotcha. But what about the PS series? I have definitely heard some horror stories about using PS paints on regular model kits. What's the deal there?
Ah, yes, PS polycarbonate. That's the key. It is absolutely critical to know this. PS paints are only for flexible polycarbonate RC car bodies. That's it.
Only RC bodies.
Only. If you spray PS paint on a standard polystyrene model kit, the hard plastic, most kits are made of those hot solvents we talked about. They won't just bite, they will melt, craze, and basically destroy the plastic surface.
Right.
It's not pretty. It's a definite non-negotiable rule. No PS on static kits.
Okay, message received, loud and clear. No PS on my tanks or planes. So we know the chemistry now. Alcohol acrylics drying outside in, hot lacquers biting and curing fast. How does this translate to the workbench? Like masking, that's where I always get impatient. How long do we really need to wait?
Yeah, masking too soon is probably the #1 mistake. Even though both types feel dry quickly, you need to give them much longer before tape. For the XXF acrylics, I'd say bare minimum is 24 to 48 hours.
48 hours, wow, okay.
And for the TSAS lacquers, give it 24 to 72 hours. Especially for gloss finishes, they just need that time to properly harden in bonds. The tape doesn't lift them. And always, always use a primer first. And low-tack modeling tape. Maybe even, stick it to your jeans at the back of your hand once to reduce the tackiness even more.
Detacking it, right? Good tip.
Yeah.
What about polishing? Getting that super high gloss mirror finish.
Another patience game. And crucially, polishing should only be done on the TSAS lacquers. Forget polishing the XXF acrylics. They're just too soft, they'll shred or smear, it'll be a mess.
Okay, lacquers only for polishing, got it.
Yep. And for those lacquers, you need a full cure. Not just dry, not just tape ready, but properly, deeply cured. That can take 1 to 3 weeks, sometimes even longer depending on thickness and conditions.
Weeks again. So how do you know for sure it's ready? Is there a reliable test?
There is, actually. It's surprisingly low tech, the smell test. Pick up the part, hold it fairly close to your nose. If you can still smell that distinct, slightly sweet chemical odor of the lacquer solvents, it's not fully cured yet, don't polish it. Once that smell is completely gone, you're probably good to go.
The smell test, I like it. So it's less about a clock and more about what the paint is actually doing chemically. What about putting different paint types over each other?
Right, good question. The general rule is hot over cold. is risky, meaning putting a hot lacquer, like TS, over an acrylic, like XF, or an enamel that isn't fully cured is asking for trouble. The lacquer solvents can attack the layer underneath and cause it to wrinkle or lift, or, well, melt.
Yikes. Okay.
But the other way around, cold over hot, is usually fine. You can normally spray an acrylic or enamel over a fully cured lacquer without any issues. Just make sure that lacquer is truly cured first.
That makes sense. And you mentioned thickness and conditions earlier. How much do we influence this whole process with how we actually spray the paint?
Hugely. Coat thickness is probably the biggest factor you control.
Mm.
Thicker coats take way, way longer to cure, exponentially longer, really. Always aim for multiple thin, light coats rather than blasting on one thick, heavy one. Let each thin coat flash off before the next.
Thin coats are key.
Absolutely. And humidity. High humidity is bad news for lacquers, especially. As those solvents evaporate quickly, it cools the surface rapidly. If there's a lot of moisture in the air, it can condense on the surface and get trapped in the paint, causing a cloudy or milky look called blushing or fogging. So try to paint when it's dry if possible.
Right. Avoid painting on rainy days if you're using lacquers. Okay. So, thinking back over all this, what really strikes me is just how much the underlying chemistry dictates everything and how that dry to touch feeling is just so misleading sometimes.
It really is. But once you understand why the alcohol evaporation versus solvent evaporation, the outside-in curing versus the through cure, the hot versus cold, then patience stops being this annoying waiting game and becomes, an informed part of the process. You're not just waiting. You're letting the chemistry do its necessary work for a quality finish.
Yeah, respecting the chemistry, it definitely makes you think. What other common things that we use every day are governed by these hidden chemical rules? And if we understood them better, how could we use those materials differently, maybe better? Something to chew on until our next deep dive.